an issue that we got into very early on the platform, before it became anyone's policy, was the banning of cell phones or the removal of cell phones and social media from our classrooms. And I particular have for a time been reading stuff by a guy called Jonathan Haidt, who is a professor from the States, who has done some amazing research there on social problems amongst the young and linking them to the rise of smartphones, social media devices. And basically he's drawn a correlation, certainly in the United States, between teen self-harm, teen suicide, particularly amongst girls, and social media. And then he came out here a couple of years ago, he extrapolated his research and said we were lagging behind. I and many of you, therefore, were pleased when this government said we're going to get rid of cell phones from schools. The left and the woke news media said it was terrible, it was just a window dressing policy. So how has it gone? Well, I thought the best person, one person who could answer that would be the Minister of Education who introduced the ban, Erica Stanford. Minister, welcome to the platform. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Now, you kind of did softly on this. It wasn't sort of official, but you said you reckon schools should get into it. Do we know, firstly, how many schools have implemented the daytime prohibition of being on a smartphone or mobile devices?
We don't have that data because, schools are all sort of self-governing entities and they're not required to report to us yet. It is due to be enforced for Term 2, but what we do know is most schools have already enforced it in Term 1. So I've heard of very few schools who are waiting until Term 2, but for the most part they all are, and it's going really well. I'm actually, to be perfectly frank with you, it's going a lot better than we expected. Oh, okay, don't pat yourself on the back too hard. Look, tell us why. No. And I imagine you get out to schools because you're the minister now and you're cutting ribbons and, I don't know, kissing babies all over the place at schools. Tell us why you think it's going better than expected. Look, a lot of it actually is coming through the media. I'm going into schools and hearing about it as well. And I always make a beeline for the senior students and talk to them and say, how's it going from your perspective? Because the teachers will tell me one thing. I'm always interested in the student's perspective, and I'm usually expecting them to say, grumble about it and say, miss our phones. But it's been really interesting, the feedback. And I always say to them, tell me what you really think. Don't tell me what I want to hear. And they say to me, look, to be honest, at first we hated it. But now that we've had a chance to get used to it, it's the best thing.
Like giving up smoking.
Talking to each other. We're talking to each other. We're doing activities at lunchtime we normally do. We're interacting. We're talking to new people. It's fascinating that everyone has said from every school I've been to that the noise at lunchtime is so much louder than it normally is because kids are interacting and playing with each other and talking and getting books out of the library. We've had librarians say that this is the most number of books that have ever been seen taken out of a library, which is something I had never expected. So what was key for me over the week, I think it was the end of last week, were the Christchurch principals coming out and talking about the improvement in mental health so far that they're witnessing. I think one of the high schools said they haven't had a cyberbullying incident in a month. For the first month in a long time.
And this is what Jonathan Haidt has been writing about for years. That this technology has changed behaviour and you've got to get hold of it. That's incredibly heartening. Are you going to get some data on, or is this something you think becomes the norm in New Zealand schools?
Well, it will become the norm, but we are going to get some hard data as well. There is a Crown company called Network for Learning that we set up under the last national government, I believe, and they look after the school's internet and network, and they can tell when cell phones are logging onto the school network. They can tell when kids are accessing websites. So they are going to, by the end of this term, give me hard data on kids accessing the network during school time. So I had some very early, and these are just very early figures and they're still working them through, but after the first few weeks they said to me, we've seen a 15% drop in phones logging onto the network during the school day. Now, phones automatically log network if they've been brought to school before, so they were kind of saying, well, that might indicate that kids are bringing their phones to school. So they're going to do a lot more analysis for me, but we should be able to have some pretty good data by the end of the term to let us know what it's like compared to Term 1 last year, for example.
All right. Look, I want to give you, I've just got a text through from Ash, who's a regular listener on the platform. Sean, a local school down here is crapping themselves as what to do when cell phone ban kicks in, as the students' classes and timetables are all digital and uploaded straight to their phones, almost as if they've never had timetables in the past. Has there been any suggestion that, Ash goes on to say, FFS, have they never had a written timetable? And he thinks it's a good policy. But have there been any unexpected negative consequences?
Not particularly. Look, the timetable one I get, my daughter was similar. She's got an odd timetable. It changes every week, but she's printed it out and stuck it on the inside of one of the folders, so it's not the end of the world. It's like we used to do in the old days. But in terms of unintended consequences, not really. I'm starting to hear a few things a little bit about smartwatches, not hugely.
Yeah.
But look, that's something we'll consider in the future. We just want to bed this in, see how it goes. If we need to go further or pull back or make changes, we absolutely will.
But initial indications is that it's going pretty good.
Well, it is, and there's also a bunch of exemptions. So if you need it for a health reason or a learning support reason, or there is like you're a teen parent or a teen unit, there is leeway built in there. So
I love your anecdotal evidence that the students, and they are the people at the end of the day who've got to live with it. You're saying they hated it to start with, and then they go, wow, that's good. That's good. We like it. And this thing about the noise levels, that's a really good way, I think, to measure the impact of a policy.
Yeah. One of the girls in the news, one of the students in the news last week said the ban was a weight off. She said it's a weight off your shoulders, knowing you're unplugged for 6 hours, not worrying about whether or not someone's messaged us, and we're more focused in our class, and being present in the moment and being with our friends. I mean, that is echoed wherever I go.